Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of the Commercial Real Estate 101 podcast. It's great to see you all this lunchtime. It's great to actually be here with my friend Joe Serafin. We got connected digitally, and we actually had a conversation, I want to say a couple weeks ago now. I was just fascinated with how he was able to scale his operation so quickly in his market. And, he kind of gave us some advice a little bit about our new venture, Summit Commercial Group. And I thought it'd be really cool to be able to have him come on and talk a little bit about his experiences starting and growing a company now that's, I believe, is the number one commercial real estate company in Loudoun. Correct?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are doing some serious deals, so it's pretty awesome to see the growth you've had in a pretty short period of time. So first off, welcome to the podcast. It's great to see you.
Thank you very much, Raphael, and thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, as you mentioned, I listened to your podcast, and I listened to the one where you guys were talking about launching the new brokerage, and all of them do intrigue me. All your podcasts, all your shows intrigue me, but this one right here, this is why I was like, I got to reach out, because I was there 5-6 years ago. I know the struggle, I know the stress and the nervousness, and I also know the successes or whatever, so yeah, I'm glad to be on. And again, thanks for having me on this.
No, I mean, I'm thankful for you to taking time out of your busy schedule to share some insights, because, as you know, with this podcast, we reach a broad audience around the country, and we have some international, which is kind of cool as well. But obviously the focal point of the audience members that we have are related to the commercial real estate industry. So we have brokers, bankers, lawyers, developers, you name it, really. So anyone who's interested in the commercial real estate space, that's kind of the target audience. And we tend to skew a little bit younger in their career, meaning, between the ages of 25 and 44 is kind of the target demographic. And I'm not sure if it's just because that's what podcasting tends to be, like the podcasting age range, but that's based on the analytics that we pull every month. That's kind of the target audience. And we do get younger people.
I just missed the mark. I'm 45.
No.
I'm 45. So,
Well,
but
yeah. Well, and you, I mean, we'll get into this throughout the podcast. You've done a great job of adopting all these new technologies and really leveraging them to be able to grow your business. So I would say you're probably way ahead of the curve, even ahead of people who are much younger. So I think that it's pretty awesome to see. But before we get started, I kind of wanted to give the audience an opportunity to learn a little bit more about you. So if you don't mind kind of sharing a little bit about your backstory, that'd be awesome.
Yep, sure thing. So again, my name is Joe Serafin. I'm the owner, principal broker, founder of Serafin Real Estate, and we're both based in Loudoun County, Virginia. We'll rewind back to 2001. I graduated Virginia Tech and was going into the hotel industry because I just wanted to travel and get the discounts on the hotels. So I started working in Washington, D.C. for Hyatt. It was an 800-room hotel, and unfortunately, that's when September 11th happened, and we went from 100% occupancy down to 3%. So I was laid off, being one of the new guys, indefinitely, where that went from very high. Obviously, they didn't need a lot of staff there. I was living at home because I'm a college student that's broke and just coming back. Needed some money, so I decided to start bartending around the Fairfax area. I'm like, what am I doing around here, Virginia? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to go down where there's palm trees, move down to Miami, Florida for a little bit. That lasted about a year, and I was like, what am I doing? I got to get my stuff together here. So went to law school for 6 months, didn't like it. The reason I did it is because my family's from here, from the Northern Virginia area. I was born in Fairfax, and my uncle was a commercial real estate attorney, but they lived in Great Falls, which is a pretty prominent area. And I thought, okay, well, I'll get my law degree. But come to realize that's not how he really did it. He actually got into commercial real estate in some of the shopping centers by, instead of taking a fee for the deals, he would just take equity in them for the legal work that he would do. But my dad was a local builder, and I decided to get licensed in 2005 to really help him find lots. Well, that was great right then. And then 2 years later, the bubble bursts, and he's like, I'm retiring. I'm done after this. So went to a firm that focused a lot on multifamily, a lot of new multifamily development. And I was with them for years. I was representing the Carlyle Group, JBG. Struck a really good relationship with the Carlyle Group where they wanted me on different projects. mostly multifamily around DC and then Maryland, Virginia, back down in Florida, Connecticut, New Jersey. So I was licensed in 6 different states when I was working a lot with them in the Carlisle group. And then, fast forward a little bit on, and the family's growing. I have 3 kids and a lovely wife, and needed to be more here. And so I had asked my old firm about, hey, let's open up a branch down in Loudoun County. We were living there at the time. They weren't too much interested. They were more in those heavier urban areas. So I just thought, okay, you know what? I'll do this myself. So right at that time, interesting enough, some family friends who do commercial construction were thinking about launching or expanding their commercial brokerage. So they asked me to come on as a partner, and I agreed. And that really didn't work out that well. We split amicably, but their concentration was elsewhere. I was really the only one bringing in the commercial business. So that is how SRE was born. It took me about a month to come out with the name. So creative, Serafin Real Estate, but just kind of, that was it. And from there, that was right at the beginning of 2019. So February 2019 is when I launched SRE. I luckily, had some clients that came over with me. So I wasn't starting from ground zero. I definitely had some deals that were in the pipeline that I could take with me. But again, it's always nerve-wracking, in the beginning. As you probably know, you're pretty much everything. You're the 5 departments of a business: sales, marketing, financing, accounting, operations, and human resources. So you're running it all. But then from there, just slowly grew.
Yeah. No, that's great, and it's good. Thanks for providing some context. And obviously, scaling in a commercial real estate business. I mean, this is just targeted to people who typically have been in the business for at least a little while. Because when you first get started, first off, you can't become your own broker. You have to wait a few years in order to have the experience to be able to get your license to then branch off and do your own thing. But the commercial real estate business, it's a long tail business, so. I didn't start making any money really until year 3 or 4, and then finally got in a little bit of a stride. But, so the first few years, you're not really in a position unless for whatever reason you put yourself in a really good spot the first 3 years and you say, okay, well, we can go ahead and do our own thing. But I would say that there's a lot of people probably that can relate to you where they say, okay, well, there's a transition point where it's like, okay, is it worth me going out and doing my own thing, or should I just continue along with the path that I have? And, a lot of us in the space are very entrepreneurial. So some of us kind of have that idea of wanting to go do our own thing at some point. So,
right. And I guess the little break that I had in there between the first company that I was with to this company now was that partnership in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that, even looking back, was a way for me to kind of, I guess, personally test that out, realizing it wasn't for me. But in a sense, if I was doing most of the brokerage activity, but then I had partners, okay, I could do this. I could do this on my own, or meaning, I could start this, carry the expenses. It's all self-funded. I mean, we've never taken out a loan for anything. And there was, I was thinking, okay, who do I need to bring on? Who do I need to help really in some of these aspects? And my thing is, I like being in the deals. I like my relationships with my clients. I like working, negotiating, all of that. The goal's never been to grow it to 100 agents where I'm, in a sense, managing other brokers and their deals. It's always to be in those deals and working as a team. So when I say it's like strategic growth, it's very, very slow strategic growth there. And the first guy that I brought on, he actually didn't have any brokerage experience, but was a close friend of mine, very close friend of mine from 15 years old. And there was an absolute trust level there, 100%. So, when we're talking starting the business, I mean, there's got to be transparency. I mean, you're talking numbers here, financial numbers, and also, stuff that's going to be unique for your own business. So he had some investment experience, personal property investment experience, but not any brokerage. But I thought this is a good fit, though, right now for sure, because I could trust this person. And then from there, it's very, very slowly grew in terms of us putting more brokers on and bringing them on.
Definitely. No, and so, I'd love to kind of, piece out these different steps within the process and then get more in depth into the things that you're doing day to day now to kind of make sure that you're continually growing your enterprise. So to start, I know you had mentioned the transition point. I know we talked about during our conversation the nervousness that comes along with making that jump because you've already kind of established yourself. You have existing relationships, oftentimes great relationships with the firm that you are affiliated with. It's not anything related to your frustrations with people in the firm. It may just be you have a different vision for where you want to see your career go, and it doesn't align with that path that the firm has. And so, I know for me, when I made the transition, one of the hardest things for me is that I really, loved and respected my broker and his son and everyone affiliated with the firm. And so even just having the conversation about, hey, I think my path is different than what this is on, and I need to make a switch was tough for me. That was the hardest part for sure. Obviously I knew that I could do it mentally, I guess, but obviously trying to maintain that relationship that I had built with my previous firm members was, crucial for me. And then obviously planning things out to the point where you said, okay, I feel comfortable now to make that jump. So you'd mentioned that you had kind of been wanting to be a little bit closer to home. That was kind of the impetus for wanting to start your firm. What type of steps did you put in place to kind of make that jump? Because you had talked about maybe having conversations with your partners. Was it a quick jump or was it more of a well thought out type of transition?
Well, I'll give it up to my wife here, actually. So I had to have that support there and that encouragement. And that actually was one of the things that gave me the confidence to do it. So if she's listening here, but I'll give it up to her because she said, go for it. And it was a very quick decision. I don't know if it was overnight, but it was like, okay, we're fine. Let's do this right now. So, and it wasn't a timing thing or should I wait? It was like, okay, let's just go for it at this point. Now, before that a little bit, it's not like any planning wasn't done. There's notebooks and, handwritten business plans and things like that on what exactly are we going to do? And that was developed and that is constantly being fine tuned. But as an overall, that was all developed then. So right before I started it, I kind of had fallen back into a niche, which is early education centers. Nobody else was really doing it around here. And it was slowly starting to kind of catch on a little bit. But I kind of knew if I concentrated geographically, just this area that I'm born and raised in, and keep my target market very small in the sense, look, there's 5,013 commercial properties in Loudoun County. So not small, but not, DC, New York, Miami, all these different places. I could really, really get to know that market well. And then if I narrowed down and focused on a specialization, that would at least pay the bills if I could capture 80 to 85% of those transactions. That had started some right before I started Serafin Real Estate. One of my clients who I helped with a very simple land deal, and this is before SRE. We're talking $850,000 deal or so. Well, unbeknownst to me, he was the developer owner of about 15 large early education centers. Valuing a portfolio of 120 million or so. So we had a great relationship, and I'll kind of dive in a little bit how that relationship was born. So that particular piece of land he was having an issue getting just because of some personal conflict that he was having with the owners or the listing broker and so forth. So he's like, well, how do we get this? Well, long story short is I bought the land. And literally under an LLC and sold him the LLC for $5,000 right there at the closing table. So, but that was a piece that he needed. Well, developed a piece of trust, and that trust then grew into now, okay, hey, do you want to help me out with this portfolio? He's a 1031 guy. So he was looking to, all his tax basis was really low, dispose of a lot of that portfolio. So I'm like, well, absolutely. So then right when I started SRE, the name was already starting to get out there with the early education. So the very first deal that we did actually happened to not be one of his, but a Kids Are Kids because they had kind of heard, I was getting out in this field, and we sold that for $7,980,000 a couple months in. We started February 2019. I think that closed in like April or May of 2019. And this is why I love hitting those first quarter or second quarter early on deals every year. It just gives you that confidence to kind of carry through. You're like, okay, well, at least marketing expenses for the year are covered right now. So,
yeah. Well, and we talked offline a little bit about, because we're still early on in our firm's life. We started back in, I think we got the official green light from KREC, which is our local real estate commission, January 15th. So we're barely 2 months into this thing. And, we got a lot of momentum, but we're trying to use the funds that we're generating to kind of like, keep the firm running. And we have low overhead right now, so it's not a problem. But, you talked about how, one of the tactics that you use when you first get started is at some point you want to be able to kick in the commissions from a deal into your operating account. So then you have money to play around with, and you don't have to come out of pocket all the time to be able to, fund different initiatives that you're taking on, whether that's marketing or, CRM, technology, that sort of thing. So.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I'll give it up to you guys. I mean, we're friends on Facebook and LinkedIn and all that. I've seen the deals that you guys are putting on in a 2 month. I mean, didn't you just close something? I mean, like a very quick turnaround.
Yeah. Well, it's not quite closed yet. It was an all cash type thing. They just want to inspect it, and we're probably going to close here shortly. So it was a quick turnaround deal, not a big one. It's 350, which is not a crazy number, but still, it's just one of those things where you just got to keep stringing the wins together, and over time, it's gonna pay for itself for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, congrats on that. But that's exactly right. I mean, my thing was to keep overhead very, very low. I mean, we don't have, a massive office space where that's one of the biggest line items on there, is that, and that doesn't exist. So that allows me to put in that money into technology. And interesting enough, I'm a big numbers guy, so I have looked back at the numbers year over year, and our office software, office supplies, marketing expense, advertising expense has remained consistent, even though the revenue has gone up. Now, with that said, though, I mean, I may have a system that I'm trying out, like maybe it's a big year of local advertising, print advertising, or something like that too. Well, then I may actually shift the digital presence or the Google AdWords or something like that down a little bit, kind of just test to see what's happening. But there's a lot of like the free marketing as well. I mean, we're big on case studies and press releases and all that, especially if it's a significant deal. And that's just labor, manpower of, again, knowing the right people to contact. I mean, we're really close with the Loudoun Chamber and Loudoun Economic here. And we had a big closing a couple of weeks ago, and the guy, one of my friends over at Loudoun Economic, was like, here, you got to contact this person, this person, this person. And then we had success. It made the local press and made regional press. And then through the help of Ed Winslow, it makes the other press releases, MSN and all of that as well. So, I think it's capsizing on all those success stories. So when we had that very first sale at SRE, yes, that got blasted out everywhere. Right after that, it was a portfolio with that client that I was telling you about, where we liquidated that at some pretty attractive cap rates. Well, now the name's out there. Well, now let me get creative on how I could really, nobody else is doing that around here. There's very few people around even the country. Let me focus on that geographically, pull all the information that I can, and then prospect, basically. And for early education centers, for example, Reonomy and places like that, they have obviously information, but even nobody's 100% accurate. Well, it is 100% accurate when the licenses are government regulated by the Department of Social Services to the minute. I mean, so was able to find all the addresses for the childcare licensed commercial facilities, cross-reference that then with a bunch of different systems and all that, and now have owner information. And now it was letters literally getting sent out on the successes, like, hey, we just sold this building at $550 a square foot, and this one at a 6.2 cap. Well, if you're a seller, you're the owner of that childcare facility, you're reading that, you're probably going to call me. If not, you're going to hold on to that letter because it has some market stats and things like that in there. I mean, we've gotten calls 6 months later. mean, 1 year, those letters, and I'm talking very direct. I mean, 80% of that work, the 80-20 rule goes into the research before. And then the 20% is just taking the action to write these letters. And that led to, I mean, 1 year, those letters alone was about $27 million of closed transactions just from those letters. And we're maybe talking like 2 a week. That's it. So very basic, 1 page. So a 50-cent stamp, So,
yeah, maybe even an hour making the content or whatever, because you have all the data. It's just trying to put it together in a readable and nice format.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's a great strategy. And that's one thing I was kind of curious about too with the firm itself is, what type of strategies have you been employing? Because your scale that you've achieved in the last 6 years it's pretty significant. I mean, this is not you guys are doing pretty sizable deals, and the number, the volume that you guys are doing is pretty impressive. So it's one of those things where I'm sure there's a lot of systems in place that you guys have implemented over that period of time to help support that year over year. Because, in order for you to maintain a certain level of performance, you have to follow a system, right?
Yeah.
There's a great quote that I always hear. Well, I've heard people say you don't rise to the level of your competition, you fall to the level of your systems or your training. So
right. It's similar to like you are the average of the 5 people that you hang around with most, right? Yeah. So, well, one of the advantages that I saw, so, looking around like prior to SRE, I mean, you see some of these properties getting marketed 10 million, 15 million, 20 million, and you look at the OM, the marketing brochure, and you're like, this is crap. My 5-year-old could put together this. And then you look at, what a residential house listing that's $500,000 and it's beautiful. And so, there's a visual element to it. How are you going to present this property? Okay. So that was really the first focus, was like, okay, with these listings, again, we brought some over, right? It's $7 million, a $7.9 million listing, a $15 million portfolio. How are we going to present this better than anybody else? So we, put those together, and those have evolved. I've looked back to see what those looked like in 2019. And I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, they're much better now, but they were still better in 2019 than in the majority of the competition. So now it was, all right, how do you sell it? Okay, well, service, right? I mean, we wanted to be broadcasted to outreach as many people as we can nationally. We were always co-broking on everything. So that didn't limit us. We were wanting to co-broke because it was more about just turning over that volume than trying to take that extra percentage. Not at all. We've always co-broked, and getting it out there. Okay. And then the presentation itself, personally meeting, the buyers at that property with the information, not only that, a nice brochure that's not just stapled together, but a nice, almost like binder, or, a digital presentation that you can give, really helps sell it. And then of course, knowing that property and the numbers inside and out, what are the obstacles on how to sell that property, and have those in the back of your mind. So if that question comes up, I mean, right then and there, you've got that answer to it. That I think, helped to turn things over that couldn't have been turned over before. Also getting creative, right? We could get, again, this wasn't one of the first deals, but it was a $8.5 million warehouse sale. And there's a couple other brokers before us that could not sell it over a couple year period. At that time, and this had to be 2019 because it wasn't what industrial is today. It was owned by an owner user that was using half of it for his business, half of it was leased out. And triple nets were good. That market was pretty healthy at that time. So instead of using it as like a owner user sale or anything like that, we had 2 15-year net leases signed. He signed one on a sale leaseback. We somehow negotiated a brand new lease for the other side, which now made it very attractive on an NOI standpoint. Now we could sell it as a cap rate. So we actually achieve more in less time just by shifting the marketing focus and going after a different target of buyers. And that one successfully closed. So it's all of the above there.
Yeah. And reiterating a piece that you had shared earlier is that you kind of, obviously you work on other deals, but you've made your niche kind of that early childhood centers, and that market like the back of your hand too. And I work in a market that is a okay size market. I mean, we're 1.3 million people in the metro area, but at the end of the day, I mean, you could fully specialize in something, but it's also a market where there's a lot of generalists, and I would deem myself someone who's somewhat of a generalist, but 80% of my business is either retail or industrial. So I get very familiar with those different areas of town that are, retail corridors. I know the rates like the back of my hand. I know what tenants are looking like in those areas based on the fact that I'm talking to a lot of them down a day to day. And so it creates this competitive advantage, because if you work with someone else who doesn't necessarily have that knowledge, it's like, okay, they could very well happen to sell the building, right? You can happen upon a buyer that eventually comes around and pays what you're asking for. But without a sort of understanding, a nuanced understanding like that, it's hard to replicate. You can't really replicate that, right? Everyone can stumble along somewhere and make a deal happen, but that's why people hire people like us that have this knowledge, because we know how to market and place it in a position such that we increase the percentage likelihood of you achieving the highest possible price. And that requires you to have a very specific knowledge. So
that's exactly right. So when we dove into that early education niche, there's 999 licensed commercial centers between the 3 counties that we concentrate in. An average going back to the year 2000 is 2.17% of those trade per year. So that's roughly about 20 buildings will trade in some sort of fashion, commercial childcare center per year. If we could capture, which we do, 85% of that business on a sale value of averaging around $4.5 to $5 million, that right there covers all of our overhead. That or all of our expenses on everything. So that is, and now we have developed our own database on that, because again, now it's not just triple net early education. We'll do owner user as well, and sometimes those are very confidential. So they're not on public sites. They're not on LoopNet or any of those, because they need to remain confidential. So now we have a very good market grasp, because we know what those leased out is, our database, where we have appraisers who contact us. Hey, need some recent lease rates. And if it's off, if we're negotiating, we see that lease rates are $25 a square foot here, and they're coming from out of state, we could tell them to the penny. Well, actually, if you go 8 miles outside of Dulles Airport, it's $41.89 a square foot, triple net for an early education center on the current rate today. And the sales price on an owner user building, $511 a square foot, cap rate 6.4%. So it's, again, knowing and really diving down into that niche. But you're right, that's not the only other thing that we do. I mean, we have other clients that get into other things, and again, a lot of ours is repeat business. So we like industrial. I mean, that is still a hot market for us. Not so much land, but some land sales. And we could get into this a little bit more, but that's also what helped me develop the team that I have around me, because of the concentrations. But one thing, and I'll tell you, this again, there's always like these trial and errors. So after, this was made a couple of years ago, we got, after we were really running this early education thing, it's like, well, what other niche things can we get into? And we were doing some work with some like breweries. I'm like, well, I don't know how to, market this right here, childcare and breweries. All right, so they're not going to go hand in hand here. But once we did a deep dive into that, could this be a developed niche? There wasn't enough properties, even though Loudoun County has a lot of them. There wasn't enough business to really dive deep to say, hey, we could make this another primary niche in there. We will do it. We do know about it, but it's just not enough. So I think that's important too. If you're going to go after a specialization, make sure there's enough product and that there's enough turnover there.
Yeah. Yeah. So you referenced, with early childhood centers within the 3 counties that you guys are targeting, you're talking about 990-ish.
99. Yep.
Yeah, 999 properties, and of that, 2.1 trade every year. So the average price point being 4.5 million. If 20 trade and you get 85%, you can kind of back into that and say, what's my revenue number? Based on those values. So
Yeah, that's
that's
it.
the market
Yep.
research that you're talking about, and really understanding it so that you can feel pretty assured that if I put my effort into this like I should, right? You should constantly be reaching out and sending letters and doing all the things you can do on the marketing front. You're going to be able to run a successful business, and it's not just going to be something that success falls out of the sky, right?
Right.
Because you may be able to stumble upon being a successful business, but if you want replicatable results, you have to be able to get that granular with things. So
Right, exactly. I mean, I will say, yeah, there's a luck component, right? Like
oh sure,
it's
yeah.
the luck kind of fell into it somewhat, but then it's also putting in the work to make that luck happen where,
Mhm.
put in the work to really do the research, do the marketing, formulate the right letters, reach out to the right people. And again, a lot of that was prior to even taking the action. It's like, okay, this is who is the target market at this
Yep.
point. So,
Absolutely. So one thing I was kind of curious about is, talking about um, rela- uh, the team aspect. So you've talked about how you were able to onboard people early on in the process. The first one that you ultimately hired was someone that you was a very close friend of yours,
yep.
who wasn't necessarily a broker per se, but he had a little bit of experience in the commercial space. I guess how did you come to that determination? Because really, we're at that stage right now, and we talked offline a little bit about the fact that
Yep.
we've been talking to a few people who are potentially interested in coming on board and trying to vet and getting an understanding of what their goals are and how they align with what we want to be long term. I guess how did you come to that, you know, determination with the different people that you onboarded? And obviously every individual's different. So I thought,
Yeah, I think it was, so there's 5 of us. Okay, so we are definitely the definition of like a boutique brokerage, but we're running all of this with 5 of us. But there was always some sort of personal relationship
mhm,
there or established prior to. So, we've had a few people with us and that are no longer with us, but like the core team that's with us right now. I mean, one of the guys that's doing phenomenal is was a former commercial lender. He was my lender on some private commercial investments that I have, a guy that you could go grab a beer with, and we did. So when
mhm,
he was making the decision he wanted to go, and again, I don't actively recruit, but he called me up and was like, hey, I'm looking to getting into brokerage. And he's been doing lending in a certain area, which is Western Loudon, for 12 years or so. Well, he's got a book of business right there, right? And he's a likable type of person that I thought would do really well, and he gets along with everybody, right? So when he came on, it was pretty easy. He was covering a different territory of Loudoun County's fairly large. Okay, and it's
mhm,
almost like a divider line with what we call King Shooter Route 15, where he was in that Western Loudoun area, and everybody knew him, and he knew everybody. So it's a little bit more. It's not as urban, not as dense. But again, if I think in Percival, for example, there's 221 commercial properties in there, and he did the loans for half of those business owners. Now it's just a shift from that mindset of lending to now mindset of brokerage. First thing, let it be known, calls, hold events, sponsor things, and letters again, letting people know what you do. So that is a geographic specialization that he has. Another guy who's more of a recent one, but I've known him from before, approached because of his previous commercial brokerage closing down. And again, I'm very non-recruiting, but this made sense. He is in an area of Alexandria, Virginia, that in my older years now, I'm just too lazy to like kind of want to go to and hit traffic and all the other stuff. So I wasn't really concentrating in that. Well, he's there. He's there. He's a commercial attorney as well, so has a client base, knows Old Town Alexandria really, really well. So it's a win-win. It's a win for us because it's a different geographic area now we could kind of expand to. It's a win for him because we're going to do what we can to support that on that niche. And that's his target right there. So, and then our office manager, and so everybody's on a 1099, everybody. So that's very easy, for tax purposes. And I was on the advice of my accountant. So the office manager who kind of organizes everything happens to be my younger sister, who I obviously know very well and know is very well organized. So she could keep everything while my head's going a million different ways. I might forget about something. She'll keep track of all of that for really all of us. So we call her the ringmaster, like just because she's like, organizing all this chaos that's day to day, and then communicating with the clients as well on important updates and things every week, actually. So every week we send out a client report to every single seller that we're representing on activity, current offers, everything like that. And it's a pretty extensive, but a pretty broad report that she's, I know it takes her a long time to do these, but every Friday those are going out like clockwork.
That's amazing. And I'm assuming you handle that within your CRM and everything where the reports can be issued, or are these custom that you're creating on a weekly basis?
No, they're within, well, they're custom in a sense of we've customized them, but they're through the CRM.
Got it.
They're through the CRM, but we've customized them to include additional information because, again, there's so many different platforms with commercial real estate, that LoopNet has this one report, and then you have the other report from Crexi, and you have the other report from Brevitas. So we have a cumulative and combined report as well. So
got it.
Yeah,
that's super smart. That's great. And so referring back to, well, I guess let's elaborate a little bit on the people piece, because it's always something that's kind of fascinating to me regarding the systems of keeping people together, maintaining proper morale, and kind of growing the team. Because again, as a leader of an organization, you have you're an active deal maker, but you also have a responsibility as the operator to make sure that the enterprise is successful and people do well within their own respective businesses. So was that I'm assuming you're probably doing something similar before, but was that kind of a piece that you had to kind of systematize so that you could, make sure that the members of your organization were able to accomplish their goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So every year, beginning or right at the end of every year, there is a meeting that I have individually with them to kind of establish, hey, what's the goals and all of that for 2025. So I could really establish a baseline on some things to concentrate with them individually. For example, one of the guys wants to really do a deep dive into AI, which I know you and I have talked about, and I love talking about that stuff. So yes, I'm more than happy to help dive in with him on that sort of thing. We hold a meeting, in-person meeting every other week. So every Tuesday for a couple of hours every other week. And that's just really, talking about the deals that are in progress, deals that are about to close, what's in the pipeline, that sort of thing. But it is everyday communication, Raphael. Every day. Multiple times a day, even. If there's some things that we have that are pressing, right now we've got a deal, $8.5 million deal that we're very, very close on. And so one of the guys and I who's talking about it is very, we're talking multiple times a day. So, yeah. And that's where I'll even expand on that a little bit more. So, you can only handle so much as an individual, right? So this took me a year to kind of come up with a plan, compensation plan, but also a plan of how do I take some off my plate, but still service the clients properly. Yes, we have our geographic systems. So look, there's enough to go around. I believe in abundance and all of that. So some of these high profile listings, the team's a part of, okay? It may be from a primary standpoint, but regardless, everybody is going to receive some sort of compensation on that deal, because somebody else may not be the primary on one deal, and they're not going to make the lion's share of it. But On the flip side of that, on another deal where that other person is the primary on it, they're still going to get a piece of it for really not doing a whole lot. And I believe it's all working itself out. Again, this took me a long time to try to figure out on how to compensate, how to make this fair. So for me personally, majority of mine is seller representation. That's what I'm good at. It's what I like doing, and business development. So getting listing representation. Okay. Depending on where it's located, who the client is. If it's a repeat client that I've had a relationship for a while, I'm going to probably be primary, but I'm going to have my other guys help me out on it. They're going to be part of that to help answer inquiries that come in, general inquiries. We get into the meat of it. Yes, I step back in there. But let's say it's a deal that is, let's say the company sources a deal, but it's in Alexandria. Well, I'm probably going to put the guy in Alexandria as the primary out there. Now, a certain compensation will go to whoever was the originating broker, but he's going to be the primary. Now, everybody else is there to help on that deal, and is going to be compensated as such. Now, the office manager is not licensed, so we can't compensate her for commission-wise. However, she can answer general inquiries, and that's just on a there's an hourly fee that's given on that on a compensation structure, but changes every week. So
yeah, that's great. No, and I like the idea.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that helped me so I could go out, continue to get more business. And the other aspect of that, how large of a deal this is, how complex of this is this going to be? Who do I think is going to get along best with that particular client? And then that's all determining really that, who's going to have more responsibility in each deal.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's the roles we're trying to define as we go along here with our new firm, is that, at some point with Will, my business partner, and I, we probably should be active in the business development space, like generating the opportunities that bring in the firm. And then from there, we team up with our agents to be able to help service our clients and everything else. And to your point, I mean, if the deal's very complicated and requires your involvement more so than others, then obviously you're going to be the primary, no doubt. But then there's also opportunities where you can share, some of the opportunities with your other team members, such that they get experience, and then obviously they get some value from the organization in the form of deal flow and compensation. So
yeah, and again, everybody is on it. So like, I mean, look, I believe in some balance, right? The personal balance too. If we're going away on a trip and pretty much inaccessible because we're out of the country or something, there's help that's involved in my absence or in the other person's absence. Yeah, we may have to catch up on a few different things, but for the most part, working as that team collaborative effort, everybody's caught up on everything. So again, it allows for a better client experience, because if I'm in meetings and I can't be reached by the phone, somebody's probably not in a meeting, and if it's an urgent matter, can get right to it right then and there.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And then one of the last topics before we open up to Q&A, I wanted to give us a little bit of opportunity, kind of with 5 or 10 minutes left in the call, but related to technology, which I know we've talked about offline a couple times, but obviously we have a grand opportunity as professionals to leverage these new tools that are coming available to better serve our clients and to really make every facet of our business more streamlined and efficient. And so, obviously I'd kind of like to get your take about some of the tools that you've been using. I interviewed this gentleman named Michael Hieronymus last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I listened to it. Yeah.
He's a whiz when it comes to that sort of stuff. And I'm looking forward to keeping the dialogue going. Maybe in the future we'll have him come on and kind of talk about some more stuff that he's got going. So, but yeah, that's the type of stuff that I'm always looking for inspiration on, and it could potentially benefit your business. So
I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, so we use it. I use it every single day, and I mean, it's I've paid plans with ChatGPT, with Gemini, with Perplexity. I mean, you name it. Gamma, all of that. I had to give yesterday. I had to give a presentation, or case study presentation, to about 50 or 60 other brokers and some other lenders and all of that. And I knew what I was going to talk about, but I mean, I needed a slideshow presentation. It's been quite a busy week. Dumped it in, my idea and my outline into Gamma, which the outline was kind of formulated through ChatGPT. on here's the bullet points, which I had to provide. Take that, let's put it into Gamma. It already has a theme in there, which I like the black and white theme. So I just put it in there, the outline, and that's it. I had to change around a couple of the photos. And now I have a 8-slide presentation ready to give, a 15, 20-minute presentation on. So that's one. I mean, that's not how we develop our OMs. Are much more extensive than that. But I, in trying to explore Vertex AI on trying to create something just to make my life and the brokers that are with me easier, where perhaps it's voice or one prompt command activated to create an offering memorandum in our style, our branding, and everything else. I'm like 20% there right now. Probably have to bring in some coding experts at some point. But if I could get to a level, look, I remember this one guy telling me that it's like, if you're looking to develop stuff like this, it could cost you $10,000. It could cost you $1 million to do this. You have to have the blueprint. If I could get that blueprint down with the help of AI and then turn it over to a legit coder, expert, software engineer, and save some money, great. As long as I'm getting the product that I need, and that product is really just internally to keep everything organized. So, but another use case, pulling data from our database and from CoStar and Crexi or Public Tax Record. This is a couple of days ago. I was just curious to see not which property type, that too, but which zoning code in each county was the one that saw the most sales activity since January 1st, 2023, so the last 2 years or so. And I have all this information. I've exported it, and I said, okay, give me, put it in the chat, give me the rundown, and it just spit it right out. I mean, it confirmed a lot of things. Some things were kind of surprising, but I'm able to take that content and now write about it or put it in a blog post or something like that. And that's been the other thing, is the content creation, getting stuff out there that's specific, hitting keywords, where if somebody searches, hopefully we show up first.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's been an unbelievable content creation tool for our business. It's allowed us to kind of be constant about our posting, because otherwise, without some of these tools, you could post every day or you could engage every day, but it's going to take you a lot more time than we frankly have sometimes. Like, I don't think either of us have time to sit down and try to figure out for an hour and a half how to create the most compelling post there is regarding whatever your topic is. Right. So if you're able to streamline that, and obviously, you gotta make sure that the AI has your voice, right? You got to be able to kind of modify things to make sure it presents itself well. But it's helped me in a variety of ways to be able to create that content. And to your point regarding the reporting piece, I mean, that's really, I think, one of the best ways to establish yourself as an expert is to present information in a readable format to the broadest possible audience you can, and make it insightful. I get people who reach out to me all the time because of the newsletter I post every month. Yep. And I push out reports to people via email as well. So I constantly have people responding to my emails saying, "Oh, this is great. No, I hope all is well." And some people have actually reached out to me and say, "Hey, you have time to talk? I have a few questions about certain things." So it's that constant iterative process of keeping in front of people and making people know that you know what you're doing, and streamlining that process so it takes less and less of your time involvement.
Yeah, I mean, I think I am a subscriber to your Louisville newsletter.
Oh, you are?
I think because it popped up, and of course, and so for your bet, like, I mean, if I ever have anybody looking, and I know who to go to. So I see your content. I see when it comes out. I don't know that market at all. So, I would, it's like, but I mean, you're doing it right now, which is great. I know that Michael from your last podcast, I think that's his name, mentioned the task thing with ChatGPT, and I have implemented that for a daily basis. So I gave ChatGPT an outline based upon what day of week it was, Motivational Monday or testimony, whatever that was. And so now every morning at 5:30 in the morning, I have a topic because of all the information that ChatGPT has it in a sense knows me. It's authentic to me in a sense where it knows how I write, it knows even past dealings and things like that, where I could get that information and, hey, this is, it'll give me the post, and I change it around a little bit, and don't use it every day, but every day
Sure.
at 1:30, it gives me a topic to
That's
post
great.
about.
And
Yeah.
and that's an aid to you to be able to make sure that you're consistent about what you're doing on those platforms.
Yeah.
And if that helps you, which it certainly will, then it's a smart way to follow along and implement that in your business. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, and so one of the last things we'll do before we open up to Q&A, I did want to give you an opportunity to kind of share any type of advice that maybe we haven't covered during this topic. Obviously, we've touched on a lot of bases, and I'm hopeful that a lot of people got some value from it. But maybe you could share one of the best pieces of advice that you would give to others based on maybe they're in their career and they're looking to start their own business and they want to be able to scale something that's significant so they could continue that trajectory for their family. What type of advice would you give?
So it's really, I think, owning a niche, for one. So a specialization. I know it's repeated many, many times over, but it's about the relationships in this business. So all the tech that we can use, and I even falter at this, but like all the tech that we use, it should be only to really help it benefit the client, right, and help build that relationship. And with that, leverage the marketing, the brand, and use tech. But again, it's all like a people business. So those clients that you have good relationships with, they can be lifelong clients, or what. And maybe they don't do a deal for a couple of years, but if you're going out to dinner with them, or a lunch with them, or grabbing a drink, whatever it is, just staying in front of them, basically, to and not anything fake, just be real, be who you are. And it that has helped, because again, those are the easiest deals. I will tell you a deal right before we got on this podcast. I'm not kidding. One of my close clients, great relationship, literally just left. We wrote up all cash deal, 1.65, closing 2 weeks. Easy deal. Easy. I mean, that, and it's done. I mean, or it will be done. Hopefully I have a text message after
Yeah,
this.
not gonna worry, right?
I've done it. But that
Yeah.
was, it's a good friend of ours, and called me up, and that was it. Done deal.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's through you fostering those relationships over a period of time. So not forgetting that this is a people business. This requires you to be able to be active in the community and conversing with people on a day-to-day. And obviously technology is great, but it's a tool. It's not necessarily the only option that you should employ to continually grow in your grow your business. So I appreciate that
Yeah.
insight there. But
Yeah.
what we'll go ahead and do is open it up to Q&A. So if you guys are watching this live, please type away in the chat box. We'll be able to answer any questions you may have. And in the meantime, I was curious about man, I spaced on what I was going to ask you. Anyways, I guess we'll just wait.
Yeah.
It was on the tip of my tongue. I was like, this is gonna be a good question. I'm really interested in this. And all of a sudden it's like, whoop.
It'll come to you.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
But it seems like we have a couple people on the live stream, so it's definitely great. And obviously this is all recorded as well, so we'll be able to push this out on YouTube and other platforms as well.
Cool. Yeah. No, it's been great being on. So.
Oh yeah, no, I'm really thankful you had
your
took the
stuff.
time.
I love your branding. I love everything. Again, I'm kind of a visual person, so yeah, love the stuff.
Yeah. I need to get a little bit better when it comes to the production quality. I mean, obviously the audio I've been able to do that's one of my next goals, because I look at videos like Chad Griffiths, who's a buddy of mine. He was unbelievable. I mean, he's a world class. Tyler Cobble. I just went down to his conference down in Alabama. Class act, just an unbelievable person. And he obviously has a full-time marketing person that he employs, that he has like custom, professional videography and everything. It's almost like film studio type stuff. And it makes a difference in the way that people consume content. So obviously the information can be great, but it's always good to be able to present it in a way that's very, because you can expand different service lines. And I remember exactly what I was going to ask you. So regarding the service lines piece, because that's another thing that we've considered, because I'm sure you get this sometimes where you have clients who they've approached me and they say, hey, I want you to sell this building, but also I have a business that I've run for 20 years and I'm looking to potentially sell. What are, you're interested in potentially helping with that. And historically, I haven't been able to because my previous firm, it wasn't in the purview. And so now we're exploring the option of opening up a service line for business sales as well. And then obviously the capital markets piece is a potential through a relationship that we've developed with a local lender that's considering transitioning. And so it's just stuff I'm just kind of curious about your thought process there.
So it's very ironic that you bring that up because I'm looking at the comments here, and I will give a shout out to Erica Baez Powerhouse. It goes right there if you see that one.
Yeah.
So we have a strategic partnership with Erica, who that's all she does is business. She works. She's with Trans World, but that's all that is. That is a business brokerage because yes, we do act. I mean, we do get calls on the business sales and all of that. Not necessarily my expertise or my really, I don't really
desire.
There's a lot that goes into those. And Erica is amazing at that type of stuff. So I saw that she was commenting on here. So it was just ironic that they had that. And then other business lines. I mean, we have strategic partners when it comes to lending and things like that. I mean, we don't take a fee or anything on that too. But again, even though we're niche and all of that, look, I'm not going to pass up other opportunities as well. So especially if it makes sense.
Sure. Awesome. So we have a question here from Renate. So let's see. As a property analyst, it is also connected to commercial properties or only in the SFR and multifamily. I was wondering if you could clarify that slightly. So, as the question pertaining to whether a property analyst focuses on strictly commercial properties or not, I guess that I'm not sure on the question. If you could clarify briefly, that'd be great, Renate. In the meantime, while Renate's providing that, let's go ahead to Kainan. He says, "Aloha, Joe. Who was your first hire, sales and operations side of the house?"
What's up, Kainan? How you doing? Actually, recently connected with him. He's out of Hawaii. So well, the first hire, technically everybody's an independent contractor, but sales. But again, we were running everything. So it was that close friend that I had mentioned. So it was both sales, operations. I've always been the one on the marketing side of things just because I'm kind of picky on the visual type stuff, but he's also very good in operations for systemizing things too, just because of his background. So he helped out a lot with that, but then it was both. So really the first, we use a lot of virtual, probably 5 or 6 virtual assistants also at first too, and for all the admin tasks. But again, they were through Upwork, and they weren't just one-off project hires. They were consistent, 30 hours a week or so, and would just handle kind of whatever admin tasks that we needed for compiling data.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, we'll go back to Renate. I think I may understand the question. So I think maybe what he's asking is for property analyst roles, is it, strictly commercial properties or is it a blend of multifamily and single family residential, et cetera? I'd probably wager to say that, actually.
Yeah.
So we're going back here. So Renate says, as a property analyst, meaning when searching comps and identifying after repair value, is it also used in commercial properties? So,
no, I mean, not as much. I think I understand the question, but we look at value adds, not necessarily after repair value. There's a lot more complexities that kind of go into that. For example, you could have a undervalued lease and the property is being sold based upon that lease value, let's say that lease is expiring in 2 years and no renewal options, where you could buy it at the price of what it is now with that lease value on a cap rate, but in 2 years increase that lease value to market rate, and then you've exponentially increased that property value. So that would be something that we would look for. If it's a seller client of ours, what we would suggest then is popping those rents up before you actually go on the market.
Yeah, because especially with investment property, it's based on a capitalization. I mean, it's capitalizing the income that's produced by the property. So if the rents are suppressed because there's bad leases in place, it could hold down the value of the property. Whereas if you were to just see the property, sometimes a vacant property could be worth more than an existing property that has a tenant in it because of the rents that are being achieved by it. So it could be counterintuitive. You got the same properties, but one has a bad lease in it, and now this is the value of that property, and the other property is higher, even though it's vacant. So it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion that there could be an after repair value that would be higher. It depends on each scenario. So
yeah, I'll just give you a perfect example of that. So we recently sold a 45,000 square foot. It was the original elementary school for one of the counties here. And the lease was undervalued. It was $16.50 a square foot. We were marketing that at around 13 million or so. And that was a very low cap rate for what that building needed to be. Well, that tenant, once they vacated, that building shot up in value because the lease was so undervalued, where the highest offer that we received when it was leased was $12.5 million. Didn't work out. We just closed on it for 17 million. Went under contract very quickly after the tenant vacated, and that nets him $4.5 million more just from not having a tenant in the building. But every scenario is different, though.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
On the market.
Well, we're running up right on the hour, so I just want to be respectful of your time. So I do appreciate your time, Joe. It's been a great discussion. I know there's a lot of people who've gotten value from this conversation. So if people want to learn more about you, or maybe even reach out to you to learn more about what you guys do on at your firm, what's the best way to do that?
So our website's pretty intuitive. So you can go to our website. It's serafinre.com. Again, serafinre.com. Give us a call on the office line, 703-261-4809. If you want to email me directly, it's jserafin@serafinre.com.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to include that in the show notes. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, go ahead and the description and we'll make sure it's in there. If you guys are listening to this in podcast format, please go to the description and you're going to have all that information as well. So, Joe,
thank you to you, Raphael, and man, let's definitely keep in touch. If you have any questions like that, anything like offline or whatever, I'm happy to share. I'm pretty much an open book when it comes to this stuff. So yeah, pick my brain. I'll do the same for you, and let's both.
Well, I'm going to call you because you're like 6 or 7 years ahead of where I want to get to. So you're probably going to call you pretty regularly and be like, hey, Joe, what do you think about this?
Hey, man, anytime. So I really appreciate you having me on, though. This is great.
Oh, yeah, this was great. And I'm looking forward to keeping in touch. And for all you guys who are watching this, again, thank you so much. This is obviously we want to create this as a watering hole for commercial real estate professionals to learn about the markets and really just learn about the commercial real estate industry as a whole. If you guys like this channel, please like and subscribe. It makes a big impact on our ability to reach a broader audience. Along with that, if you guys are listening to the podcast, please like or give us a 5-star review. It does make a big impact on our ability to reach a broader audience. And obviously, we greatly appreciate the support. So thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.